commenting on their look. I find the Goo Goo Dolls like aesthetic to be like just so hateful. And it's like it's just so like what do we it's just like that it's like that's it's so rooted in like 2000s like sort of like stunted visions of the future or something.
He just wanted to look like John Bon Jovi.
It's not it's like fourth wave glam. And they're like
Yeah,
the only ones doing it, and then they play like music that like is primarily like driven by an acoustic guitar that's like plugged in to an amp.
except for they let the bass player had like one early big song because the bass player was the original singer
Oh wow. Okay. Not
when they
not
were a punk band.
eh, and a problem that's the problem if you're trying to be a like sex symbol because the bass player is definitely not a sex symbol.
No. But like
Not
when I
expect
saw
that.
them live, like the bass player like sang one song and all like the fans were like,
The
"Yeah,
bass
bass
song.
player
Right.
name." But it wasn't like the singer got added. He was like in the
Yeah, yeah,
band
yeah.
and he just like developed into the main guy. No, but it's weird. The point is that though by rejecting, I mean, this is my broader like the thing I want to do about new metal someday. It's like by rejecting Nickelback is the core of the failure of Obama era politics.
Were they Canadian?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Unpack that in less than a
so
minute.
the point is that by this is the last moment when rock is a popular music form,
Okay.
basically, right?
What year are we
This late
talking?
90s moment.
Okay.
We're talking 96 to 2000,
Okay.
2001.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit later,
Yeah.
but they're
Strokes.
like but Strokes don't sell records when they emerge.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Anyways, continue.
They don't sell match. I don't think Is This It goes platinum. Matchbox 20 goes platinum. Live goes platinum.
Oh
Collective
God.
Soul
Right.
goes platinum. Late period Chili Peppers go platinum. Not once, right? Like Matchbox 20 sold I think like 5 million copies of that record. That's so many copies of a record. And it's interesting if you look at the chart performance, they're doing this neat move that later rock bands don't do. It's kind of interesting, and it's honestly, I think, like an alternative possibility for rock, which is that the rock audience, the core rock audience, is already aging. So Matchbox 20 isn't a alternative chart Hot 100 charts crossover. Matchbox 20 is an alternative charts MOR/adult contemporary #1 hit. And that is this interesting move of like new rock
Mm.
bands crushing the adult contemporary listenership is just interesting.
Yeah. 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 I was just looking
So
up.
that's like
Yeah. Good.
people who like Poison also like Matchbox 20 a decade later.
Yeah. Right.
Or at least aren't mad about it.
Yeah. But like, why does that have to do with Obama politics?
Well, because the rejection of and maybe more explicitly like the rejection of the new metal kids, right? The Limp
Oh
Bizkit
yes, yes.
fans.
We've discussed this. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
We've done this, right? Is that as I think that the critical rejection of that means you're severing a link between I mean, I feel like a revolutionary uprising. You need to have both, both the like the Strokes fans and the Limp Bizkit fans. If you
You need the
otherwise
Midwest.
you've split off the intelligentsia from the from the worker.
Right. Although we have also noted that corn still good politics apparently.
Yeah, no, or like you want to have like Slipknot, just like everyone agrees on Slipknot.
Right.
That's the ideal world.
It's
You
interesting
pick
because
or
like
Corn, except Corn's got some kind of hateful shit in those early albums.
yeah, it's really interesting actually because I think I personally experienced this because I moved from Orange County to the Central Coast of California when I was like in my like mid-teens, and it was like I went from like everybody listening to hip hop, like kind of like Green Day, Blink-182, Sublime to like just Central California, but like it's much more rural and like farm. And it was like everybody was listening to Slipknot, and I was like, "Whoa, what?" Like, it's like The rural urban divide. Yeah. Okay, so important question for you. Is the popularity of geese a psyop?
Yeah.
Yeah. If
Important question for you, Saxon. Is the popularity of Bill Ackerman a psyop?
is Bill Ackman or about Ackerman?
That's a great question. I'm gonna just go with Ackerman for the rest of this podcast. I don't
Pretty sure
care
it's
what
Bill
his
Ackman.
is. It that's a worse name.
Yes, Bill Ackman.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the quality of
Man,
research that you can get from no, I actually this is the
yeah,
quality of research that you can only get from money
Bill
for nothing.
Ackman. Yeah, yeah.
It's like the urinal song. Remember that? Like ack ack.
You
Ack, 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 ack,
oughta
ack, ack,
know
ack.
by now. No, no, that's another song. We're talking about something. We're talking about the Billy Joel song.
Oh yeah, that's a different ack ack ack. Heart attack ack 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 ack.
What
Both
about
good songs. Both the urinals and that Billy Joel song are good songs and not psyops. The urinals are not a psyop.
No, the Euros another side. Bill Ackman is just rich and has the desire to be in the spotlight to a certain extent, I think. He's definitely no who's that French guy that's a part of this story. Anyways, we'll get to Bill Ackman in a minute. But first, let's start with a fun one. So let's start with the fun topic of we're gonna do a two-parter here. The fun I'm recording from a closet in San Diego, California. So my microphone quality is a little off, but it's no different than any interview that you've listened to on this podcast. So to start, article came out in Wired recently that was basically suggesting that Geese, the much like debated return of like
Weirdly
rock
debated,
or
weirdly like
whatever.
contentious for no reason, like
Yeah,
discourse for the sake of discourse. Like
like
Baudrillard
both.
would love this shit, right?
Right.
Like it's just simulacrum of discourse. It's not even real discourse.
Totally. It's yeah, so Cameron Winter and company like obviously dropped an album called Getting Killed, started blowing up, and then it just became like a thing of its own. The band much loved, much hated. Uh the victims of
Wait,
massive amounts of hype and also like unfair hype and unfair criticism. Like it's like a good album. Like can we just like settle on that and calm the fuck down? It isn't the return of rock and roll. Anyways, uh it came out because the debate has continued into 2026 that they hired a publicist, but not just any old publicist, a very let's say
good.
yeah, a very talented in a league of their own company called Chaotic Good Projects, who basically, they're described on their website as digital experiments and musical mayhem, but basically they're just a like a publicity company.
I didn't know
And
that is so wait, that is so annoying.
oh yeah, no, the whole article's so annoying when from anything anybody says that's from Chaotic Good is absolute just like gross. But anyways, unsurprising, the firm they create networks and social media pages on like platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and otherwise, and they use it to drive their clients, bands like Geese, and also Aklu and or Aklo, whatever you say, and some other bands, uh, basically to drive traffic, build up popularity, try to like massage the algorithms as best as they can. And they were like on some podcast or some interview with Billboard and basically like admitted that they kind of created this like sort of like user generated like content around geese and like helped them become popular. And this the Wired article came out and said that it was a psyop. But and then there was a lot of responses to the articles. Once again, this like simulacrum of discourse. Suggesting that, well, if you consider this a psyop, then like all music that's popular is a psyop, and it's all fake, and
But like
they're all
are
being
those
pushed.
takes psyops?
Well, those take psyops, right? Exactly. I do like this though that like the in the interview, the company did this chaotic good did go ahead and say that they wanted to make it clear though that the accounts that are driving this music are genuine in the sense that quote they're bespoke, engineered, and overseen directly by the in-house PR team, which to me doesn't seem very genuine. But then again, what the fuck is genuine
I mean, they
nowadays? I don't
like
know.
ontologically speaking, they
Also,
exist,
they
so they
exist,
are
so
genuine
they're
in that
genuine, right?
sense.
Exactly, yeah.
Um, first off,
It is not a
before we
bot,
before we
supposedly.
before we get into this too deeply, we got to shout out like two figures who are actually central to all of this happening that weirdly the discourse has erased. First off, intrepid Billboard reporter and previous guest on this very podcast, Kristen Robinson, was doing the interview that blew up the story.
Oh,
Right?
interesting,
Because
interesting.
Kristen is a really good journalist and got the chaotic good people to say all kinds of stuff to Billboard Pro. And
Nice.
then, secondly, um, the Wired story is based like heavily on a Substack post by an
Right.
artist named Eliza McClam. McLam? It can't be
McLam.
McClam. McLam. You really got to have a hard Mick there because McClam is rough. McLam. And who all? It's actually an incredibly well written piece. I was like,
Yeah.
I was really, really good. And the Wired basically did the like thing where they were just like, oh, someone said a thing and we're just going to tell you about, back to the Baudrillard thing. We're not going to actually tell you a thing. We're going to tell you about someone else telling you about this thing. And then everyone else is like, oh man, Wired told us about someone else telling us about this thing. And there are like
Wait,
12 articles, all of which are referencing each other, none of which have done. What's crazy though is in a pure
wait.
simulacrum situation, like there is no real, but you can do more research, and almost none of them did a single shred of research out there. It just takes and feels, and they're all like, there's this thing called clipping where people make money by presenting clips of other people's thing, and it's like, what you're doing in this article for which you've done no additional research. The real is out there, people. You just gotta Google.
Yo, okay, and like, okay, I will say like the Days article in response to this, which was like, oh, like if you like think that Geese is a psyop, then it's all a psyop. Okay, that author of the Days article did interview somebody, although a supposed publicist, although then changed their name, which I find kind of bizarre. But then proceeded to openly write and admit that they Googled the Wikipedia they looked on the Wikipedia page of industry plants and used that as research for the article. And then they end up quoting hypernormalization by Adam Curtis and then put a link to the doc on YouTube of hypernormalization within the article. And I'm like, yo, like we started this podcast 5 years ago thinking that music journalism was bad, but holy shit, Sam, has they gone down the fucking tubes? Mind you, I'm sure this person is either not even employed by Days and probably working like as a freelancer, making like $100 for this post, and or is employed by Days, making $25,000 and like contracted and doesn't have any insurance or anything.
And
But
writing 100 posts a week. But yeah,
right,
also, if
but
I was an industry plant, the first thing I would do is remove that Wikipedia page. Prevent the icy investigatory capabilities.
I'm just like, what is the editor being like? Oh yeah, cool. So you quoted the Wikipedia and then a documentary by Adam Curtis. Yeah, dude, publish that shit, dude. That's in, dude. What the fuck? Like, sorry. Anyways, so I will say though to your response that the really well written Substack that you mentioned, by Allison McClam, forgive us if you're listening
Eliza
about not,
McClam.
yeah, Liza, yeah, we is mentioned in the articles though, so that
Is mentioned,
it's
but it
not,
is like
yeah,
fully the basis of the article.
yeah, right, instead of doing actually their own research, right, exactly. So I don't know where we want to start with this story, but I mean, are they a plant, like what's going on?
Yeah. So I think that there's a couple different directions, I think, with this story. This
Yeah, absolutely.
mess of referential, like, whirly gigs.
Right.
So one thing is it can tell us about music journalism. It can also tell us, I think, about how people are thinking about music these days.
Yeah.
And maybe also something a little bit about like the band Geese, actually. I think it's possible to do all three of these
Mm.
things.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
so for one, I do think that this is like what was it was let's start with the music journalism thing because we basically covered it already. But I do think there's a fascinating thing where there's this there yeah exactly what you were saying about the Dave's piece, and it wasn't just it's all the pieces basically
Yeah.
was that there was this weird funhouse mirror thing that was occurring in this discourse, this horrible little crabby discourse, um, that was everyone was writing about this thing outside of their article while doing precisely that in their article. And it was like this sense of like all online is now, partially because of the payout structures, partially because of the move, we were talking about this recently, between social media 1 and social media 2, where social media 2 is just that the majority of people's content is short form content that like is being shoved into us via intentionally addictively designed technologies. Like, let's just be very clear about that. It's like it's really not unlike when you look at pictures in the 1920s and you were like, oh, everyone was just drunk and on like a heavy nicotine buzz. Just like the whole time. The whole vibe of that moment is no one was sober. And I do think
Right.
that people are going to look back at this period of time and be like, holy shit, you just like carried around your phone with you everywhere and checked it
Yeah.
obsessively, constantly.
Yeah.
And like it was the first thing you looked at in the morning when you wake up. And it's the last thing that you looked at before you went to sleep every single day. And you didn't think that there was something weird going on there. And we're going to be like, I don't know. It was what everyone was doing, and like it seemed like it was fracturing reality, but the short form video content was just too good for us to care. And so I do think, but right, so that is like the level of like I think the 50,000 feet, like that's what's happening. And then on top of that, as a central part of that was the move from, the 2015-16 move, I think, especially by Facebook, when they realized that people weren't generating enough content in their social communities in order to keep this whole thing going, that actually having a large scale algorithm, which they learned about through politics, maybe not exclusively, but like drove a lot of engagement. And you move to social media too, right? Where everything is just layers of content. And now that the entire culture industry is built around that, you don't just have content, you have what a lot of these articles called clipping, right? Which are accounts that just exist to repackage content from other accounts, some of which just exist to repackage content from other accounts. And there's actually, in the Kristen Robinson interview, there's a really interesting line basically saying that it's no longer about getting a band on SNL. It's about everyone making TikToks of the band on SNL. No one's
Yeah.
watching
Yeah. Yeah.
SNL. It's just
Right.
this is new content for
But
this
it's
voracious maw. And
right.
so the journalism
Voracious
was
Ma.
everyone is writing about this, being like, this is just the way the world works now. While just a single piece of new content in that Eliza McLam sat down at her computer and wrote a really insightful, perceptive, complicated. It's a one. Look, we'll link it in show notes. It's a great essay. Like, wrote something interesting and new, and just all of this was like, oh, great, another piece of content. We can like do the thing to it.
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Right. That's the music journalism take. And then there's like also
Which is this problem. I mean, just the last thing, which is the problem, which is that like weirdly the only people who have enough time to make good content are either the extremely successful people or people who are doing it for free.
yeah, basically doing it like
I
out of
don't
love. And then everything else is
out of
just
love.
like
And I don't know what
just
and
yeah.
that seems like a weird like that's where we're at. It seems unsustainable in the long term. I mean that's why you and I are industry plants, right? If it wasn't If it wasn't for all that Universal money, we would have hung up our spurs a long time ago, cowboy. Um,
Oh, please give me money, Universal.
so yeah, so uh, so that's maybe the actual discussion.
Yeah, no, that's
Because
yeah, that's good. That's good. That's I actually I wasn't really thinking about. I was just kind of laughing at it, but I wasn't really actually thinking about like the music journalism take on it. But that's a good, yeah, it's a good
because
additional.
just to be clear, we didn't do it, but rest assured, listener, we did do some research for this podcast. Um, but one could, if one wanted to add to this conversation, find out how many other firms there are like Chaotic Good.
Right.
See if they act differently in different countries. See how they've changed over time. See how they're starting to use AI. There's a lot of levels that this could go at, right?
What does that mean for
How
the greater
no
industry?
one
What does that mean for your journalism? What does that mean for music? Like, what does that mean? Yeah, right. Yeah.
yeah. No, and no one was doing it because the discourse is so good. And you can just
Right. 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 Yeah.
so that's the music journalism part. The second part, I think, is this more complicated thing about geese and music and the discourse. Because okay, so this is maybe I wonder actually for just now, and maybe this is a funny place to start, but I'd be interested to hear your take. Saxon, when you said something really interesting when you were talking about this new Geese album, which is, can't we just like establish that it is neither terrible nor the best album ever made? Like, can't we just say that like this is a pretty interesting rock band and like they're doing some neat stuff?
At like a very
Some of
young
that is
age,
like
that's like, and it's
at like a
cool.
very young
And like
age.
celebrate
It's
it.
cool. Like they're doing like complicated rhythmic stuff. I mean, it's interesting if you read interviews with them. They say that like one of their big influences was the kind of like mid 2000s Radiohead revival, right? So like In
The
Rainbows was really big
rainbows.
for them, and you go back to listen to In Rainbows. I'm like, oh, I actually see how you're doing kind of a version of the like glitchy, decentered
Yeah,
rhythms
or
that
like
that Tom York and Co are
yeah, or
doing.
like the Eraser, like that song, like the song that like his main hit on the Eraser, or whatever. It's just like that kind of like when Tom York stops being like angelic choir boy and starts getting a little screamy. You can see like a real connection between the Camera Winter like vocal deliveries and Tom York. Like, yeah, I can see that.
And yeah, and they're doing interesting stuff. It also weirdly it reminds me a little bit of like Astral Weeks, right? Like the Van
Sure.
Morrison stuff.
Yeah.
Like Van Morrison when like the albums where he's decided not to write songs, but
Just
just
like
like
yeah.
vocal melodies.
Right.
Like when he's like doing his version of Joni Mitchell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So
No,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's
Right.
interesting.
No, it's super interesting. And like also like honestly like as someone who's like, like has a background as a writer, written like fiction and like poetry also, like I think his lyrics are like fucking great, honestly. Like I think they're really, really good. And like I know that's a thing where like I feel like a lot of people don't really care about lyrics anymore. But I think they're like really weird and kind of interesting. And like I don't know. I like for 23, like I don't know, it's cool. I'm into it.
So
You know? They're
so
doing cool stuff. They're
so
weird. They're like
given
fun.
that, given all that,
Yeah.
given the fact that and what's interesting is like that take that we just had. None of that is controversial. Should be listening to this band. This seems like a really, to me, again, not deep in the indie rock discourse these days. I was just thinking about like reading people like having emotional experiences with this, and it's like, shoot, when was the last time I felt this way about anything? I'm like, I think it was either either
Uh-oh.
Mysterious Traveler by Weather Report or Violet Pony, who's doing like My Little Pony related dubstep. And I was like, I took a look at myself in the mirror. I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me these days, but I guess that's where I'm at. Uh, but like this take. So coming from kind of outside this indie rock discourse, but with like many years in the trenches. That take, given this band, seems like a totally obvious, like the most lukewarm take, right? That I'm not sure if the vocal affectations totally work well. The lyrics I find a little pretentious. You like, but they're interesting. The
I'm an
band's
asshole. That's
interesting.
fine.
The guitar playing is pretty right. Like this is like this seems like an uncontroversial take. So given that, I do wonder about the state of the discourse,
Hmm.
especially given the fact that we
I think I
know
know this
now
guy.
that there actually were, that the discourse is, and we all know that discourse is always being shaped. We all know that there's a long history of payola. I mean, this is, my research on early Tim Panally. Like, you got to play a song a whole bunch of times in order for people to like it. But it is different. Given our weird relationship to social media, it is different to like have someone. Actually, they kind of do this
Hmm.
in early Teen Pan Alley. They just pay performers to perform their songs. So actually, it's exactly the same as it's always been happening, maybe. But there's something kind of wolf like marketing executive in a sheep's clothing about the sense that the discourse could be algorithmically shifted. And we know that that was actually happening. We know that these people are pretty good at their job, and I do wonder. You said something really interesting. You were like, people either think this is the best album ever or hate it. And I've not met anyone who hates this album. I've just heard people who think this is the best album ever and people who sort of don't. That's actually a very different, right? Like a very different framing for this discourse. And I do
Yeah,
wonder
yeah,
if
sure,
there's
sure.
something, the brittleness, the sense of there's a potential that this band is the best, like the intensity, whether that might actually be a result of the fact that a really effective marketing.
Yeah, yeah. You're basically saying that the discourse is like also part of like that's the psyop. Like it's
Yeah,
not like whether or not, yeah, it's like the actual discourse around it is like actually the psyop because like kind of going back the very like the overused like all press is good press kind of thing where it's like the fact that people I mean I'm even seeing like like niche like Instagram pages around that are like just geared towards people in the service industry.
mm-hmm.
I see Geese appearing on that where someone posted above the stereo like uh no one like something like no geese here or something like just like this insane like reactions of like but it's like yeah it's hitting like all parts of the internet and like that is probably actually like what is the psyop here if you're even considering that to be a real
Or
thing. It's just
like
like
just
but
like
like it's shaped by that.
the sense that it's trying that there is a vocal group of accounts claiming that this is the best in an intense way, built on top of a large group of people that it seems like by themselves would make the totally regional judgment that this is a pretty interesting band. Like there's something like very intense and a little bit brittle about Geese as a digital phenomena that does make me, I don't know, like,
You mean like brittle in the sense that it doesn't like align with like what you actually see out in the world?
yeah, and brittle in that somehow it seems like very it like really fixated around their relative quality, right? It's not like, I don't know, I love Nirvana and I think they're the best band, but if you don't, you think they're like a pretty good band. It seems it's like Geese or bust.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, yeah, right, right. It's like a zero sum game with them, really. Yeah, it's interesting. Like
And I just wonder if that feels, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting conspiratorial in my old age, but like that
but
feels a
also
little
what's
weird.
but it was also what's interesting is that like the fact that like how many people have like possibly bought into that. So let's just say that's like kind of part of like also the marketing campaign or whatever, and how many people like you have. God, what's her name? You have like Amanda Petrush at like the New Yorker writing like a think piece about how like the geese are the saviors of rock and roll. And you're like, okay, like here's someone who like I would expect from like a middle of the road milk toast opinion magazine. Like the New Yorker's like opinions are never, no one's like up in arms about their opinions.
Their takes are rarely hot these days.
Yeah, very, very mild, right? And then like to like like so you're expecting like a tepid opinion, like a well-researched, I
No,
have the time, I'm
the
on
music,
salary.
the music writing sometimes makes big swings. I feel like.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, anyways, that's fair. That's fair. But anyways, like making this proclamation, and then like a regular at my bar saying it's like the best album that's come out in the last decade, and me like just like like blowing like nearly having an aneurysm by like the like. Well, actually, how I responded was like, just don't say that. Like, just say you like the album. Like, just don't say that. Like, why are you saying that? But like, well, my point being is that like, how much of that is actually also like our going back to something you said earlier about how like we wake up, we look at our phones, but we constantly like checking this
The
short form
discourse is
content.
really
But
real for us.
and how much is that is like actually like infiltrating, and not to like put on my tinfoil hat, but actually
And
infiltrating
this is a
like how
tinfoil
we
hat
then
conversation. This is
yeah, right, okay, fair,
keep it
fair,
on.
yeah. But like how much of that is like infiltrating like our how we judge music, our culture, how we form our opinions, like how we understand like desire and like when it comes to these things.
Yeah.
But also, I would say that like on another level of that, it's like it almost feels as if like the disc going back to the simulacrum thing, it almost goes back to like the discourse itself is like a desire to have like a controversial hot take opinion in which we could all formulate and argue about. It's like weird.
Yeah.
It's like,
That's a good point.
and it's like, and because I'm sitting there, I think the bar is like a really good example where I'm sitting there and I'm like, they're fine. And like, I'll play a song every now and then on a playlist, and people be like, oh, fucking Geese. And then I'll be like, I fucking love it. Well, you don't fucking like Geese. And then it's like an argument will break out. I mean, not like, an actual, but and I'm like,
So people
that is
just
just
want
a
to feel
band.
something about a band.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things where it's almost like, it almost feels like a reenactment simulacrum of like when the Strokes came out. And I mean, I was in high school, so I don't really necessarily remember. And I was living in a small town in Central Coast of California, but I remember there being like real like division amongst my friends who are all like music nerds about the Strokes. Like I had a lot of friends who were into
Which
hardcore and punk.
was
I'd be like, who are these fucking guys?
it,
Whatever.
which was itself, and this is the fascinating thing about, I guess, contemporary rock, certainly like contemporary New York rock, right? Which is that the Strokes themselves were like a simulacrum of, right? Like their
Yeah, yeah,
whole, like,
right, totally,
you
yeah,
read Meet Me in
right.
the Bathroom and they're like showing up in suits all the time and just being like, we're gonna act like rock stars until we become rock stars. It was a very like,
Yeah, no, and I remember like the Rolling and like the press is perpetuating that, like long forgotten into the annals of people of like our short-term memories. But like the Rolling Stone did this huge cover story where they put together, they had like Lou Reed and the Strokes meet at like a really famous restaurant, like and like discuss music, and it was like why are and like Lou Reed was like in typical Lou Reed fashion, RIP was like who the fuck are you like 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 he didn't care, right? Like but like it's like this whole thing where it was like their Strokes are the return of this like sort of legacy, which we've seen now, like literally 24 years later, 25 years later, that it's like we can't get out of the past.
no,
If,
it
the
was just,
future
it's
is canceled.
first is tragedy, second is Geese.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, totally, exactly, and like that, and like yeah, it is interesting. Like that like on like a like on that secondary level, it's like okay, I, since we're just kind of free willing today and like we're putting on tinfoil hats, like I can totally tie this in with the fact that I recently saw Machine Girl. So Machine Girl is like another Gen Z band, popular amongst Gen Z, not on the level of Geese nor the Discourse, but like has like tens of millions of plays or whatever, like popular band, selling out like relatively like mid-sized venues. And I saw them live and like withholding my opinions of like the music and everything, I thought it was interesting, whatever. It did feel like there was people crowd surfing. The guy like jumped into the crowd. People were like freaking out. Like, a little mini mosh pit type thing happened. It was like, okay, cool, like this is all happening. But when I left the venue, I had this feeling. I was like, this actually in a weird way felt performed and like and strangely tame in a weird way. Like it had all of the markings and the characteristics and the traits of like the fanfare of like seeing a band live that you like really love. But like it felt on another level like tame, and I couldn't really like put my finger on it. And I think it comes down to this thing, and this is my working theory here, where it becomes about like the anticipatory nature of like going to see that band.
Mm-hmm.
Where like if you for the last 6 months have been listening to the record, but you also are following them on Instagram and you're watching the clips and you're watching the clips of them live and you're seeing how they perform live and you're seeing the stage and you're seeing the light show and you're seeing the set list and you're seeing all that, and then you go to the show, you kind of already know what you're expecting. So that anticipatory nature of like what you're going to go see is kind of like muted.
Well, I also think there tends to be like a funny thing if once we're thinking about clipping, right? Once we're thinking about the fact that everyone is now, or almost everyone is enmeshed in these like this network of social media value creation, especially in a fairly mediatized space like Brooklyn, which is like what percentage of people were on their phones?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
a
yeah.
hundred at the
Yeah,
machine,
right.
100, right? Which means that
A lot, like a lot. Yeah, yeah.
which is not
Like
unusual, but
majority of the crowd.
also it's
Yeah.
part of the thing is like when you're going to see a show, part of what you're paying for now is the opportunity to put on your socials, which is how everyone does this, that you saw
You were
the
there.
show, that you were there.
Right.
And that's
Which
part of
becomes more valuable than like the actual experience itself.
which is why it was so last summer. I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast. Last summer, Dylan and Willie came to Bangor, Maine.
This is so you and me. I'm like, saw this crazy Gen Z band. You're like, I saw Dylan.
I mean, it's because the crazy Gen Z bands don't
Well,
come
I
here,
didn't go to see them. I went to go see like Sex Pop, but anyways.
I'm not allowed to go to the all ages house because I'm too old
Yeah, right.
and they're my students. I like can't show up. I can't, like there is an all
No, yeah,
ages venue.
no, 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 it has to be a paid venue. You can't just
Yeah,
go,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no, you
No,
can't
as
go,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, and if it wasn't, yeah, I can't go to Radon House. Um, but so I saw Dylan and Willie,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
Dylan has been playing these small theater shows where
Hmm.
he like makes everyone put their phones in bags
Yeah, sure.
and is
He
unable
went to
to
Berlin.
at the Big Willie because it's Willie's thing. It's just not possible. And so what he did, so he just plays piano now. What he did was he had
Right.
backlit behind him, and then
Oh, I
a
love this.
row of lights between him and the audience, shining at the audience. So you could not see, at no point in the Bob Dylan concert could you see
Oh,
Bob Dylan, except you could kind of see him in profile the moment that you were buying a beer at the lower beer buying place.
okay,
And
hold on. Hold
people
on.
were pissed.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. Just pause for a minute and just like a moment to be like 80s now? He's in his
Yeah,
80s,
in
maybe?
his 80s.
Just still pissing people off. You gotta love the man.
Dude, and he
Like true rock star.
played
True iconoclastic rock star.
played a
Like,
great set. It's weird. It sort of sounds like chamber Tin Pan Alley folk jazz, but like it
fuck it.
was kind of incredible. And but also just everyone there was mad. And I couldn't figure, and this conversation is making me reflect on why they were angry and maybe get at this whole like right, it is this whole the whole complexity of the way that value circulates in the contemporary, in and around the contemporary music industry. Because I realized that people bought concert tickets, expensive concert tickets, not as expensive as it was say in New York, but like expensive, and part of what they felt they were owed, and the reason that they went to see Dylan was to take a picture of Bob Dylan, like on their social media accounts. So they weren't mad. It'd be one thing, a kind of silly thing. It means you didn't do any research. If you were like, he's not playing the songs because like he is, but like they don't sound like it anymore. And unless you know the lyrics, you're not, it's different tunes. But they were mad because they wanted to take a picture of Bob Dylan and he made it impossible. And it meant that the picture, the ability, like that's what you wanted out of the concert because then you can circulate that. And that's clearly what's happening in all of these spaces increasingly. It's clearly what's happening in the social media universe, or sorry, the music journalism universe. And maybe also maybe gets at why the Geese thing struck a chord, and why, right? Because there is this desire for something outside of that, right? Maybe not seeing them live, but there's this band, and they emerged out of somewhere, and they matter to you, and they matter to you a lot. And in that initial essay, um, by Eliza McClam, she writes about how she doesn't remember where she first heard the Cameron Winters solo album. That she spent a year touring and listening. It was like one of the songs was her ballad on it, was one of her favorite songs. She doesn't remember where she heard it. And what that means is that she heard it on social media 2.0, which means she
Hmm.
heard it in an advertisement, which means that it was pushed at her, and it receptively. And so there is this fundamental question, right? Like, is that, does it invalidate the relationship you have in some way? Is that the way it's always happened? And is it different? And I would say, no, it doesn't invalidate the relationships you have with the music. To a certain extent, there's always been advertising in rock music. But the way we've been taught, no, it hasn't always been tied to these tight circulation of vision and images. It hasn't been taught in our brain space in the same way. It hasn't been this weird, like, quasi parasocial thing where you don't know where you first heard it, or how it creeped, like at what point at 2 a.m. as you really should be asleep you heard a little clip of it somehow. And like that is something different, and to have that happen to an interesting rock band that people were exciting about, I understand why this then becomes a little scandal that then gets circulated all over again, in the way of all such things, maybe.
Yeah, I know what else I'm saying. Like, I don't. I mean, I don't think that like, something like this is like particularly like also new either. Like all on all aspects, like the scandal of it, the publicity aspect of it, like the new aspect of it. You're saying is rather like how it comes into our orbit.
How it comes into our orbit, and how similar that is, I guess, to the ways, right? The fact that at some level, everyone is clipping. Everyone is a social media plant. Everyone is a psyop. And we're all just taking in stuff and posting stuff, and and I think that that makes people uncomfortable, and it should probably.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It should you should and like maybe that's like a good like place to sort of land here is that like don't blame geese. Just like take like that uncomfortableness feeling of the fact that like you saw how you the curtain was revealed and you saw how the sausage worked a little bit and you felt a little weird about it and it made you kind of like reevaluate everything that you're engaging with online in this and all this clipping as you say and just like consider that and like consider if like
And what will you
you know
do with that? It's I don't know, but
yeah, no, I don't know, but like keep in mind, because here's the one thing I like, and maybe to just like fully finish this is that like the title of the Days article, which is like if geese is a if geese is a psyop, everything is a psyop, and to me it's like that doesn't make it like any better, like, and that isn't necessarily like the way that we like what we want necessarily, like that world in which like everything is a psyop, quote unquote like is created by certain people, certain platforms with like various like structures that we have like no access to and can change on a whim, meta algorithms, et cetera, surveillance capitalism, although you do the research.
and maybe the entirety of it's not a great situation we find ourselves in, given that things that are meaningful, including the simple joy of an exciting new band of of, of people, um, is in that, and
People.
there's no of people, and there's no purity. And I do think, and all I think that sense of like the curtain coming back, it almost feels like a Nietzschean or Freudian, like it made people viscerally uncomfortable, I think. And that's
Yeah,
why you get the
yeah,
intensity of the reaction and the intensity of the reaction to the reaction. They're like, oh no, it's fine. It's like, no, it's clearly not fine. Nothing is
right,
fine.
right, right, right.
And it's
Yeah, yeah.
okay to live in a sense. This is the no ethical consumption under capitalism thing, right? I've been thinking about that a lot lately. It's like it seems important, I think. It's like some of these big questions don't have resolutions. And I feel like there has to be a way for us to both neither just dismiss it and be like, yeah, global warming, it's bad, and just move on, right? Or to like just resolve it. Neither ignore it or somehow have a plan where like, yes, there's a way to have moral, like to be a moral person in this world, but like sitting in that ambiguity, I don't know. It feels like that there might be a productive way there that's beyond just guilt. It's like that's part of being human is sitting in that shitty ambiguity of both liking geese and knowing that they're a psyop. It's the human condition, Saxon. Geese is a psyop as all of us.
Whoa. Well, I don't think it's a human condition. I think it's a human condition as constructed by capital.
And so I think maybe that's a good place to pause and to pick up with the construction of capital.
So, Bill Ackman is a very uninteresting person who I will spend very little time talking about, but he is basically a billionaire who runs a hedge fund called Pershing
Didn't he have a
Square.
complicated wife thing? No, didn't he have like the Harvard wife art thing? We're just not talking about it. Okay, Bill
Whatever.
Ackman, boring person.
Like, born person who also is probably like creating the like, material structures of like our contemporary existence. But like, or like contributing to it. Anyways, for the sake of this pod, he is
No.
trying to
Sorry,
oh, go ahead. He found it.
sorry,
He Googled it.
sorry. I don't know.
The Us Weekly Bill Ackman
It
segment.
was just
Go
that
now.
his wife plagiarized her entire dissertation from MIT,
Oh yes, I remember that. Yeah. Cool, cool. Uh
which folks is bad. Now, full disclosure, hot take here. I think that, and this is following, I think, Joe Gouldy, who's a computation humanities scholar. We need to establish a baseline level of plagiarism for all human texts. Like, it's not zero. It's just not. There's no way that you haven't regurgitated some of plagiarism. And so there is the thing that if you check anyone's work, they've plagiarized because we all live in a soup of language. However, there's plagiarism and there's plagiarism.
all right, so
That's
Bill
all.
Ackman, unethical wife, also probably an unethical dude.
Wife, unethical wife. Sorry.
So Bill Ackman, unethical wife, probably an unethical dude himself. More importantly, for
Unethical Epstein tied wife.
Epstein tied. The wife's tied, not him.
Yeah.
Okay, even more interesting. Put in the footnotes. Ackman, who is known to be a little bit of a rabble rouser in the Silicon Valley hedge fund world, decided to drop a unsolicited bid for a UMG. Yes, the Lucian Grange run UMG. And the total of like something like 64 billion or something like that. Anyways, the number doesn't matter.
What does?
That's a lot. It actually is approximately 64 billion. The Pershing Square, which is the hedge fund that is run by Bill Ackman, is already a shareholder in UMG. And weirdly,
Second largest, I think, or up there. 10 cents big. Ackman's big, but a major shareholder. Sorry.
yeah. But anyways, like, essentially, like, it sounds like maybe behind closed doors, Ackman wants UMG to do some things, and UMG isn't doing them. One, be listed on the U.S. stock market, which currently UMG is only listed on some European stock market, like in Amsterdam or something, which is like
In
kind of,
Amsterdam.
which is pretty interesting. Um, so yeah, I mean, we're talking UMG, we're talking Taylor Swift, we're talking Drake, we're talking Bad Bunny, we're talking Paul McCartney. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously we've talked at length about UMG. If you've listened to any of this podcast ever, you probably already know. So I guess the question is, what's going on here? Why is he doing this? What's the motivation? What's like the greater economic situation that is maybe contributing to this random, like, let me drop 64 billion on the table and say take it or leave it. Um, and also, like, I don't know, is like are like songs and music like a kind of stable asset class now? Is that what's going on? Is it like real estate? What's up?
Yeah. So this is bad news.
Bad news to go
Uh
along with the already bad news that's happening on all levels,
yeah, this is
including
bad news. And I guess we can wrap the podcast. Not just this episode, the whole thing. It's just
you
every
might have remembered our foray into certain film studios and certain takeovers by people over there.
which is continuing. The
Continue.
worst case
Oh,
scenario, right?
God.
They're getting parent it's okay. So this sent me back to remembering details about UMG I forgot. UMG only went public recently, right? 2021. Before that, it was a subsidiary of Vivendi, which is this like large, complicated um, French holding company after it had been bought from the Bronfmans who put it together of the Seagram fortune. And right, UMG's weird because it's always been sort of like a smooshed together of all these different labels. It's kind of like the Borg of record labels. And they're always like splitting and then reconstituting and like Where's Island and anyway.
All right, that's what.
So
What's the classical music label? Naxos. Where's Naxos? Is that Sony? Is
yeah,
that like
Where's Naxos? Where right? So the thing is that UMG has been doing pretty well. It's had good profits. I think it had nine. I read 9 out of the top 10 albums. Like it's been doing great for the business. If your business is to make money selling music, and the thing is that once you're on the stock market, in the contemporary stock market, in a contemporary stock market defined by the valuations that AI companies are able to generate versus their income, right? The way that AI companies are working now makes my old examples about like Uber and Spotify look like chicken scratch, right? Like OpenAI I mean, it's not public yet, but these companies are valued at so much higher, or Oracle, right? So much higher than the amount of income they're making. And so in that context, UMG's price has not been great. Stockholders aren't making a ton of money off of UMG stock, even though UMG is making a lot of money as a company. And so this is this play is basically a desire to remake, and I think fundamentally remake, UMG into what I think Ackman says, like a properly public company. And he literally calls it, in the filing, in the letter to the not the filing, in the letter to the
Mhm.
shareholders, which is available publicly, he calls it New UMG, which is a direct copy of the new owner of Warner and Paramount, Keith Ellison's. We called it New Warner, New Paramount, right? He's calling it like literally the same language, because the idea is that he's going to unlock the value, unlock the potential value of this company, not by somehow producing more records that hit more, because it's not really possible, not by cutting costs, because UMG's pretty lean, but by somehow doing things to boost the stock price. And that is really worrisome. Even though there's kind of there's a nice patina of like, oh, it's all going to stay the same. Lucian Grange is still going to stay. It'll be just as good as it ever was. Yeah. And
Right.
so maybe it might be worthwhile looking at a little bit of detail about what they want to do. So one is they want to take it off the European market and into the American market, which might make sense. There are certain kinds of investors that can only invest in stocks that are listed in U.S. markets. It's possible that you'll get a higher valuation in a different evaluative environment. Um,
Probably something to do with like just like the rearranging of the entire geopolitical like structure currently, maybe. Possibly. Yeah, right.
Ackman's been trying to do this for a little while. A couple years ago, he said he wanted to pull it out of Amsterdam, where it's currently listed, because of anti-Semitism. So he that then, as far as I can tell, UMG was like, no, we don't have to do that. Now he's trying again. So that's one thing. UMG actually had thought about doing this themselves fairly recently, and then called it off because they felt like that. I don't fully understand the mechanics, but they thought they weren't going to get us, in the current economic circumstances, they weren't going to get as high a valuation as they possibly could in other ways. So that's one thing. The more worrying things are what some of the underlying offers that he wants to make are. He wants to change the income dividend policy. Currently, this gets really in the weeds, but I promise it does matter. Currently, UMG stock, it gets 50% of it like rises or falls depending on how profitable UMG is, right? New UMG, and he literally writes it, new UMG will target a 2% per annum increase in its dividend above current levels. So basically, constantly just increasing the amount of dividend every single year. And then any excess cash after investment in the company will be used for share repurchases. And that's really fucking bad. Good if you're a UMG shareholder, maybe. But what that suggests as the major goals, right? If your critique is that UMG is not a properly public company, and you have these as goals, as ways to boost share price, this assumes, as you were saying, right, that music is now a completely stable asset. That it's like a totally. I mean, this is the hypnosis thing, right? It's a counter-cyclical asset, right? We're trying to financialize songs. We're trying to make this an investable thing that throws off a certain amount of cash, reproducibly. And if you knew absolutely nothing about anything, like if you were like little baby and you knew nothing, maybe this would seem like a totally reasonable thing that could have no potential downside risks in the future. As it is, as someone who knows something about the history of the music industry, I call like absolute bullshit on this idea.
I was going to say the hypnosis thing. Right.
This is a profoundly cyclical industry. The only thing we know is that there have been ups and downs, and they tend to be about a decade or 15 years. Every 10 or 15 years, something big happens and something changes. It may be a format change, technology change, something gets really expensive in a different way. Music is pretty elastic. It's been fairly stable recently, but like something is going to change again, and it's going to be cyclical. And the thing is that cyclical companies that are now being run for shareholder value, we know what happens to them. We know. It's just, we know what happens to companies that are run that are really restructured around prioritizing shareholder value. The
Format,
point is that the
technology, right?
customers of that company become the shareholders, and rather the shareholders are the customers that are you're actually trying to keep happy, and the product can go to shit because as long as the shareholders are happy, everyone who matters is happy.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, and like just like a little like interjection on that point. And what's interesting when you say the product is that like I think that there's also something inherent about this whole thing, which you're probably gonna get to in a minute. But it kind of like is based on like legacy music, like being a kind
Yeah.
of proven stable asset or a stable part of the music industry, and then like even further sort of shies away from like anything new or innovative because it's risky. And so this almost kind of like heightens that in a sense. So like when you say
Yeah.
like the diminished product, it's like you're seeing like a probably a diminished product in like new music and like new styles of music or like new
Or
signings or like things like that.
anything in which you're trading basically the point is that it means that once you've got written into this, once you've reorganized your system around these promises, and if you're successful, you do it, you start doing it, and the stock skyrockets because everyone says you're going to do this. If then you don't hit it, the stock falls, it becomes a crisis, and then you have to do anything you need to hit it again. Which could mean cutting costs, which could mean doing short term moves that undercut the long term validity of an artist, of a career, of a who knows what, right? Like, if anything goes wrong, or if things start growing more slowly, you start cannibalizing the business to hit these growth targets, to hit not business growth targets, mind you, the payouts to the growth targets for the payouts for the stockholders, dividend growth targets, and that just seems really dangerous, right? Like having one of the great UMG's many things. It's a vicious, power-hungry corporation. It is litigious bastards. It's also run by people who really do love music. And I do believe that about Lucian Grange. Like, I do. And having a different set of masters fundamentally, having music be this exposed as an asset class, and having really the storehouse of human achievement that the UMG IP is. Like, it shouldn't, in a perfect world, it wouldn't be commodified this way. It wouldn't be owned by UMG. But, like, we live in the world where we do, where, like, UMG owns a tremendously valuable storehouse of transcendent human achievement. And this reads like a outside investor who does this. This is how Ackman works, right? He's a activist board member. He pushes companies. Is This is a company that has been prioritizing its business operations, which you in a funny like there's a
This
funny
is good.
Marxist
Yep.
perspective, right?
Yep. Yep.
It's expropriation of labor. It's been maximizing that at the expense of financialized circulation, right? In a weird way, it's remained a primitive capitalist at the expense of going fully into CMC, right? Of
So
just
just
like
to be
fully financialized.
yeah, so just to be clear on what you're trying to state, it's like essentially it's just like we're trying to make profit off of like our product, and like that's what we mean by like primitive capitalist, yeah, opposed to like making dividends and money for its investors and its
Yeah,
board.
and instead of the primary way you're making profit is not your business making money, it's your stockholders having their investment in the stock go up.
Right, 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 right.
And
Right.
that's been a
Yeah.
fundamental transformation in American capitalism
And
over the last
that's a really important
30
like
years.
distinction. Yeah, that's a really important distinction. Yeah. I mean, I do think that like reading this, I mean, I have no fucking clue really, but I do think from like a distance, I do see this as like not like necessarily um like I don't think it's I don't think it's an offer he's making thinking that it will be accepted, although who knows, maybe it could be. But I think it's more his like
He
pushing his
made
agenda towards like and like causing a ruckus, being the activist investor, as you said, not political, well, is politically active, but like we mean this by like in a financial sense, in a like business sense, but like to push to basically like pressure Lucian Grange and company to like move towards like being more successful for like financially successful for its investors.
Yeah, except that it's somewhere in between those two. Unfortunately, this is sort
Probably,
of
yeah,
like a
yeah. Okay.
heads he
I mean,
wins.
he'd love to have it, I'm sure. Yeah,
He'd love to
right.
have it. I mean, he apparently, according to reports, like had dinner with Lucian to discuss the matter. He's wining and dining the family that owned Vivendi, that still has the big uh, chunk is the largest stakeholder of the now public Universal. So it's the numbers are a little unclear. Pershing currently has somewhere between like 5-ish%. The Bollare group has like 18%. Tencent, I think, has another roughly 10%. The point is that there's a couple of big players here who, if they decided to have this happen, would be pretty close to the 50% necessary to do some of this, right? And even if they didn't, needing to start taking potential defensive moves against this could, like you're saying, push Universal in these directions. Which again, I think that like in this weird thing, there's two real repercussions, right? One is in the short term, I don't think anyone would notice the difference, probably,
Yeah.
unless Lucian Grange leaves. That one of the things they want to do is
Ugh.
renegotiate his overly complex terms of employment. So I don't know
Okay.
what that means, but in the short term, I don't think it matters that much. I guess there's two versions. One version is in the short term, it doesn't matter that much, and it's not until you have a dip, until you have a downturn, because you do these basic things. You get in the U.S., you change the some accounting dynamics, and people are really happy with it, and they're like, oh, it's going to make more money. And if enough people in the stock market say, oh, it's going to make more money, it just does. That's how the stock market works. The other version is that that all works until something happens, and then you've reoriented the purpose of the company, and the rubber hits the road. Or it doesn't work great, and then you've spent a huge amount of money. Let's be real, probably some of it debt financed. That's how you tend to do these kind of things. And you start, and it doesn't pop the stock price doesn't pop the way you want it to. The dividends don't go up. And then you start this constant pressure to reorganize the company. And I don't know what
In which you get
happens.
like 2055 Terrell and company, and we just have like digitally AI Taylor Swift just like beaming into our our dilapidated hovels.
Directly into the
Yeah,
skull
exactly,
box, dude.
exactly. I mean, how much? Okay, so like
It's
trying
just
macro.
all geese. It'll only be allowed
No,
to listen to
definitely will not be
geese.
geese. No, I'm not even entertaining that. No, macro picture, and then we could like put a bow on this because like we really don't have an answer. We'll have to see what happens. It's a developing story, but like, how much of this been reading a lot of David Harvey lately, and like just like he's always on my mind, and as is the term like
Always,
over.
baby.
Yeah, so I'm just
Always.
how much of this is just like a sort of like surplus of capital running out of places to go? Because I mean, you have like AI, everybody's investing in AI, but then it's like what like it just seems like Bill Ackman's public statements about it being like or like positioning it as like a stable music as a stable asset class. We know that's just fucking PR bullshit. Like we're not dumb,
Well, no, it's
and
not.
no, nor
It's
is he
not
dumb.
fully in that it's. it's become more stable with
Yeah, yeah.
streaming
So,
than it
no,
was
but like,
before.
but
That's
like,
real.
I mean, but I think maybe the interpret. Do you? Okay, well, let me start here then. Do you think the interpretation that like it like his pitch that it's become stable and will continue to be stable, like to me, that seems like him just like trying to sell it. But like maybe you think he actually believes that.
I think that music's become far more stable, but with some like it clearly has become far more stable in terms of like we've talked about it that the Beatles are always generating money. You can figure out how much money
Less
the
so
Beatles
now.
are
Yeah.
generating all the time. Um, less so, but still like a lot of those old bands, a lot of money.
Only one song in the
Um,
billions club.
really?
Yeah.
Thing though is that clearly I would say stable, but again with like systemic uncertainty. Don't know what happens when the 60s music stops finally hitting. It will happen someday. And we don't know what happens with AI. And right? And so there's these big questions about like how the music streaming ecosystem works.
Well, so but that's what I'm trying to get at. So that's my next question is that like I think that like they know that like historically music has been like less stable. There are also like billions of dollars being put into AI, which is like a big question mark about that. Like the is this just sort of like as I said earlier, like a surplus of capital and like not really nowhere to park it, essentially. Um, which 'cause, like like knowing that it's like generally has never been treated as the way it's being treated now.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And the answer is like sort of maybe. Because at one level, right? Clearly, part of the I mean, I would say part of the AI boom, the intensity of the AI boom is I mean, some of this is that hyperscalers really do get certain kinds of good feedback, right? Like the amount of money that Facebook, it's a really important data point. The amount of money that Facebook has made, made something like 15 or some significant increase in their profitability in the last quarter because it turns out, and this goes back to Geese, that AI is really good at serving you Instagram ads. So the amount of money they're making from Instagram ads went up dramatically. So some of it's not hype, but some of it is clearly that tech is a way to get these huge valuations in a time of declining relative productivity increases, especially in the United States. We've switched into a space where you make money from the stock market and not from actual productivity increases in new technologies. In order to justify, we're in this funny place now where in order to justify those sky high valuations, given the very specific nature of AI investments, you actually do have to pony up. So actually a huge amount of that additional like the capital's been floating around has been dumped into AI. Like we've spent more on AI in the last 3 years than we did to build all of the railroads in America by like then some. Um
Adjusted.
Adjusted. It's
Yeah. Wow.
crazy.
Crazy.
It's crazy. Um and so right so there actually is less capital floating around now than there was 3 or 4 years ago. Like all that capital that was like why crypto was pop. It's like it's all in AI now. It's all in AI. And
Right.
actually, so you do get so Oracle back to the Ellisons is floating this new large scale data plant. I guess in near Atlanta, I think. And they're having to borrow. I read this article in Financial Times. They're having to borrow at a higher rate because it's like there's just like it actually has sucked up an appreciable amount of the money. Now, this is why it gets back to the kind of right, which is those sky high valuations, which are produced by fluid liquid capital. Then because some of them have been made so high, it means that the valuations for these AI companies or the potential valuations for ones that aren't of like anyone with AI exposure is getting these huge valuations. Companies that aren't treated as potential growth companies like UMG are relative like their values are relatively depressed both in comparison and I think just straight off totally because no one's interested in we're a business growing at a good clip. Everyone's interested in this is a business that in 4 years could make 10x, 50x, 100, infinite x profits. And so like those, so in a weird way yes, in a weird way no, but I think it puts pressure on companies like UMG to like try to get valuation. The tricky thing is, of course, UMG can't get the AI exposure to boost its stock price because AI is so clearly a danger to its business model that, and these negotiations and lawsuits, which we've covered some, and I'm sure we'll cover again, like, are out there, but like UMG can't just be like, did you see the Allbirds thing?
No,
Do you know Allbirds sneakers?
no.
They were like a podcaster sneaker
Okay.
that they opened up like 12 stores. They went, it was very like 2011 capitalism.
Okay.
They were good for the earth.
Uh,
They've been declining for years. They renamed themselves Allbird AI, and just their stock went up 400%.
Even though they have nothing to do with AI.
No, they're like, we're an AI company now. We're selling all the shoes. And like, right? Like, we're at that stage. But I do think that UMG can't say, oh, we're an AI company now. Because like, so what's going on with the obvious problem with that plan?
Yeah, well, no, because that's what I was kind of getting to is that like this all seems from like a macro level to be like a sort of unstable era of that
Yeah.
is like I'm no economist, like I don't know, but this seems like it's leading to like some sort of capital C crisis at some point when like when like when a music company is considered to be like a growth potential asset that does that not like a sign that like maybe we're in a strange era of
Or
like
that if a music company that's been doing as well as UMG is being in some ways sideswiped because it's not, because it's
oh
focusing on
right yes
actually
yeah, yeah.
selling music
Right
instead
the
of,
primitive
or
capitalist
not
thing
even selling music, selling stream, all the music industry shit we always talk
yeah yeah
about,
yeah
selling streams and impressions, licensing, all that stuff. Like, but it's too focused on the bottom line and not focused enough on
hmm
the stock market.
and then
Is
like
basically what they're saying.
and then actually you have like a bill man coming in and like saying like well this is stupid like why would you focus on the bottom line you should be focusing on yeah that just I don't know seems like red flags to me but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I hope it. I think it's. But like we live in. It's bad.
This was Money for Nothing, a podcast about music and capitalism. You can subscribe to us at
Sure was.
moneyfornothing.substack.com. If you need some, for some reason, need more content out there, we love you. Talk to you
We
soon.
do.
Bye.